episode 16 of the fabtcg Vodcast, where we talk about random things in Commoner, including really terrible ideas that we probably shouldn't do, but we're going to do anyways. I think we talked about this in a previous episode. I think this was in one of them, and I'm trying to remember which one it was.
It was probably the weapon master, whatever. When we were going over those
Classic
cards.
Battles.
Yeah, that's it.
Classic Battles, yes. Dorinthia versus Katsu. Or not Katsu, Dorinthia versus Reinhardt. That's the one. But yeah, we talked about making Weapon Master Benji, which may not be the best way to build Benji, but it's definitely one of the more interesting things we've thought of. And so instead of talking about or building some random decks in Uprising, since we kind of already have built each hero ourselves, and I mean, maybe we could revisit building any of those, but we kind of have already built them. So
I built two.
Did you? Oh, yeah, I guess you did. You built two of the same hero. Yeah,
And
two different versions.
I picked one of them.
Whereas I built one version of two different heroes that I had in mind. But what we're going to talk about this week, we are going to build a Benji deck in Commoner built around weapon attacks. And just trying to make it work kind of well. And so the big reason we thought about doing this is that Benji has this neat thing where attack action cards you control with 2 or less power can't be defended by cards from hand. And then his next ability is when an attack action card you control hits, your next attack this turn gains +1. That is once per turn, so it doesn't happen multiple times.
That's true.
But the things to note here is that second part can buff weapon attacks. And in theory, the Zephyr Needles, are the most powerful ninja weapon in the game that you can have 2 of. The new Draconic one, I believe, does just as much damage as this.
Right.
But you can only have one because it's a 2-handed sword.
Yes.
So this, in theory, is the highest damage output for weapon attacks in Ninja, because you can do 4 damage a turn, and each one has go again automatically.
Actually, I think the new sword does 3 damage.
I think it's 2, I thought, because didn't we make an argument about whether you should do kadachis or the sword, and in theory the sword is better because it does as much damage as the kadachis, but it counts as Draconic?
Maybe.
I don't know. We can look this up, actually. Let's look at common weapon. Should be in here now, right? Or it's not. Why is it not? Oh, it's a token.
Oh.
That's why the common page is so short. Oh, it's not including the tokens. Oh, it is 3. You're right. Oh, it costs double.
Yes.
That's what the... Okay. You're right. Okay.
I thought so.
But in theory, double Zephyr Needles still a higher damage output. The problem is Zephyr Needles have this thing where if you defend them with a card that has greater block value than Zephyr Needles attack, you destroy the needles at the end of the combat chain.
They just blow up.
I guess I should just full screen this. Since we are going to be building Weapon Master Benji around the Zephyr Needles, you could in theory build it around Kadachi, but if we want to be the most weapon mastery Benji, this is just the right answer, I think. You could also do Talishar, and that would give you access to more attack reactions, but then that will break 100% after a certain number of attacks. Whereas Zephyr Needles, in theory, is 4 damage many turns. Which, I guess, just to quickly compare the two, since both are an option. The thing is, Talishar is a sword, costs 2, swings for 4. These are daggers, they cost 1, they swing for 2. So in theory, it's still 4 damage for 2.
Right.
So it's the same output.
And that's without buffing it.
Yes. It's just that Talishar has more buffs available because there's more things that buff swords than buff daggers.
That is true, yes.
But I think we're still going to build around Needles because I think the upside is worth it. Because in theory, these aren't going to break like the Talishar is. The Talishar is guaranteed to break after 3 attacks.
Yeah.
Whereas these, in theory, never break and are 4 damage for perpetude. as long as someone can't block it with something that blocks for more. The problem being these swing for 2, and lots of cards block for 3.
Yep.
So we have to buff these for them to not break. But that's where the Benji part comes in. If we hit with an attack action card, we buff this to 3. And now it's hard because it has to be blocked by something greater than. So if it's equal, we're fine. Now there is one problem with Zephyr Needle, and that's that when you defend, there's the attack step where you play this attack, or you attack with a sword, and then your opponent gets to defend, and then it goes to the reaction step, which means that if you swing for 2, they block for 3, and then you use Razor Reflexes to pump this past that,
It
still breaks. Yeah, it still breaks.
Yep.
Because they defended with something with greater defense than Zephyr Needle's power. So even if you buff it later, it's already too late. Which kind of sucks. But one place where that does matter is if they block with Rally the Rear Guard and discard a card to buff Rally the Rear Guard's defense, you can, in response to that, buff the Needle. And the Needle will get bigger before Rally the Rear Guard's block does.
Because that's how the chain works.
Weapon Master Benji's complicated. It's a lot of logic and knowledge for what I'm afraid is going to be very little upside.
Yep.
But it's going to be a funny deck.
No, you could just boost it before you attack with it.
Yep, that's the other thing. You can do something to boost it before the attack. So when you hit with an attack and then Benji buffs this, the buff happens before your opponent gets to block.
Yes.
And there are other things that do similar. So, that's the important fundamental foundation to our Benji deck to talk about before we build Benji.
Oh, also defense reactions. We should.
Oh, and as far as we understand defense reactions, they do not count as defending.
Right.
Because the cards you defend with are the cards you defend from hand. Like, it specifically says that in your defense step, you defend with cards from hand, and that you cannot defend with a defense reaction.
Right.
So they come on the reaction step. So I think what that means is that a defense reaction does not count as a defending card.
Right, because it's a reaction.
Hard to say. I mean, there probably actually is.
If you're really worried about it, just have an attack reaction ready.
You know
so
what?
You can...
Rules and policy, or maybe product releases. What's the ones for this? Rules and policies, maybe. Yes, release notes. Let's just double check here, because it may tell us here if we look at the weapon. It should be at the top here, I think. Starry Saber, Aether Conduit. Oh, it's going to be by Zephyr Needle.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the part where I read where it says that if the triggered ability is responded to, e.g. an attack reaction buffs it, the needle would not be... Oh, wait, hang on. Oh, if the triggered ability... Okay. The ability triggers at the time a card defends. If a trigger resolves, but later the power of the needle is greater than the defense value, the card would still be destroyed. So this first sentence is what tells us that buffing it doesn't change it. Okay, and it doesn't say anything about defense reactions.
Well, defense reactions come at the reaction phase. So you have to declare blockers, and then you declare reactions.
Yes. And so all it talks about here is if a triggered ability is responded to.
Right.
And so I think they understand that defense reactions don't matter here. Because it doesn't say, like, if a defense reaction or a triggered ability is responded to. They only mention triggered abilities because I think that's the only relevant one. Except for there are some other corner cases too. I don't know if they're available in Commoner, but I think there are certain cards that say increase the defense value of something.
Right.
Specifically, I think there's Earth cards that do that. But they might not be in Commoner. But essentially, aside from that, the only other things to worry about are things like Rally the Rear Guard or Brother in Arms, where you can increase their defense after blocking with it.
Right.
So, in this case, you can respond to the trigger of, like, activating Rally the Rear Guard to buff your Zephyr Needle to prevent it from getting broken. So.
Right. With defense reactions, say you're playing a defense reaction, but you have nothing else, you would declare no blockers, then you'd play the defense reaction.
Yes, and so technically you have no defending cards.
Right.
Yeah. And also, too, like, why it's important to note this is that they do say that you can't defend with a defense reaction, and that's so if you have something like Unmovable that costs 3, you can't just defend with it from hand for the defense value. That's why they specify that.
Right.
And then also,
you have to pay the cost.
Yes, and one of the important things, too, is that you can play a defense reaction from your arsenal, but you can't defend with a card from arsenal. Mm-hmm. But since defense reactions aren't defending, you're playing them afterwards, it counts. So...
You're paying for the reaction.
Yes.
And the reaction defends.
Yes, yeah. It's an odd situation, but ultimately speaking, the Zephyr Needles cares about what you defend with, so defense reactions won't affect it. And it also is, if Zephyr Needles is defended by a card with defense greater than Zephyr Needles power, break it. So if they block with 2 that add up to more than, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
It just cares if one single card has a higher block value than the Needles power. So what we will be doing, obviously, here is we are looking for things that will boost the damage of Zephyr Needle to prevent it from breaking, and also just getting advantage off of Benji's triggers, boosting the needle on its own. The first swing. The second swing, not so much.
The basic thing to know is don't swing with Zephyr Needle if it's not boosted, because there's a high chance
that they could break it.
That they could just
because most cards do block for 3.
Yes, there are 2 block cards.
There are. And there are more and more of those, I think, as we go further on.
Yes.
So, like, it is also kind of a meta call. Like, if you're playing against Chain, maybe you don't care. Maybe you just swing for 2 and you're like, he can't break it.
Yep, same with Fae or Phi.
Yes, yep. That's why I was saying it's getting that way more and more as we go on. It seems like a lot of Ninja cards are going down to block for 2. Yeah. I think that's their way of trying to balance Ninja. I don't know that it'll necessarily work, but... but yeah, so that is all the fundamental foundational learning of what Weapon Master Benji is looking to do. Is you're looking to swing for 4 with your needles every turn, often for more than 4 because you're hoping to buff it. So you're looking to go attack action card, needle, whatever. Because I think I think that is arguably what we're going to be trying to do, is do attack action, needle, attack action. Because I think we are going to probably put some attack actions that are like finishers.
Yes.
I think there are some good ones for that. Also worth noting, attack action cards you control with 2 or less power can't be defended by cards from hand. Now that applies all the time.
Yep.
So the one thing is, if you swing for 2, you hit, and then you swing for 2 again, Benji will make it so now it swings for 3 and they can block it. So kind of non-bow, but the once per turn effect for Benji is once per turn. Mm-hmm. So he'll only buff one thing a turn. But the can't block for 2 or less power, that's the whole turn. So if you follow up with further things that have 2 or more power that are attack action cards, people can't block them.
Yeah.
Doesn't affect the needles. Needles can be blocked regardless, but it does mean that we kind of have a weird ninja in the case where we actually are kind of looking for things with power 2 or less.
Yep.
I think we're not going to probably strictly keep to that. I think there's some where we do care about having more. It's also noted here, too, that this is things with 2 or less power, not 2 or less base power. So if we do have things that get buffed, they're going to be outside of it anyway. Okay, so we probably don't care about it. So like for finisher cards, we'll probably be using the best version of them.
and I mean, there are some benefits to having, like them block with cards, because that gets rid of cards in their hand.
Yes, if you have this crazy chain where they can't block anything, and so you're like, aha, I do a ton of damage to you, understand that also means that they're going into their turn with a full card of hand, a full hand of cards. Yeah. And so they will likely be able to hit you for a lot in response.
So you kind of have to balance it.
Yeah, exactly. But that does mean that we probably won't be quite as red heavy as you might otherwise be, and we'll probably use more yellow cards than a deck normally would, because we do kind of want to look for some of those yellows. Specifically, and probably the first card to even start this whole conversation with, since it's kind of the reason to be doing this in a way. One of the best cards in the deck is Brandish. Where is Brandish,
Under
though?
B.
Is it going by set first, though? I think it is. Because Brandish should have been at the... Yeah, Brandish should have been at the front.
It was doing equipment and stuff like that.
Oh, is that what it was?
I think so.
Okay, so this is one of the big cards for building around Benji. Is that Brandish, if it hits, your next weapon attack this turn gains +1. So the idea here is that you can use Brandish to pump the needle as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some well, not necessarily a downside, but if you start with your Brandish, and you start with a yellow or blue Brandish, they can't block it, so it's guaranteed to hit, which will guaranteed buff your needle, but then Benji's also going to buff your needle, where you kind of would prefer to like give one needle +1 and then give the other needle +1.
Right.
Unfortunately, this will stack them all into the same one. But there are options you can do where you go like...
Well, you can choose when to use your once per turn action, can't you?
I think it's just once an attack hits. So I think it triggers automatically.
Okay.
Yeah, it's when an attack action card you control hits, your next attack this turn gains +1.
Oh, okay.
And it's a once per turn effect, too. So even, unlike Katsu, Katsu where you can choose whether to use it, this will happen. Guaranteed.
Yep.
You cannot do anything about it. It will do it. Benji doesn't care. Benji's not a coward, apparently. But what you can do with something like this, and why Brandish is so good, is that you can go like Brandish, Needle, and then buff both of them.
Right.
And all
so
that.
one would get buffed twice, and the other one would only get buffed once.
And if you're holding like 2 yellow Brandishes, which is like the perfect turn, this is the dream Benji turn. You go yellow Brandish. They can't block it because it has 2 or less power. So it hits. You do 2 damage. Buff your needle.
You swing for 4 with
Swing for 4 with that needle. They do whatever.
Another 2
and
from
then you do a yellow Brandish. They can't block it because it's only 2. So it's guaranteed hits. Buffs your needle. Then you swing for 3 with the needle.
Yep.
And that did just cost you 4 resources to do that. But you did just swing for 11. 4 of which was unblockable. So not that bad.
Yep. That's decent.
And if you still have resources left, you can follow it up with something else, like a finisher like Push the Point, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, this is the big card. Chances are we actually probably just put in all 3 colors, I think. I think we put in the reds, even though the red can be blocked.
Well, I mean, it's like we said, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want them to block.
Yeah, and if they're blocking Brandish, that's 1 less card to block the needle with. So then if they still block the needle to break it, you've forced them to lose 2 cards. So I think you do still run the red Brandish, but you definitely run the yellow and the blue because those are unblockable.
Yep.
So long as it's worth noting, if you go yellow Brandish into yellow Brandish, the first one will be unblockable and then immediately make the second one not unblockable thanks to Benji.
Yes, that is true.
So that's why you want to do the Brandish Needle.
Yep.
Beyond all the other reasons. So I guess to start off with the deck, we are obviously doing 2 Zephyr Needles, which I guess... Oh, wait. So we're not doing the Lantern.
Right.
Because we can't. We are out of rare slots because we are doing the double needle, which is probably fine. You most likely didn't want to replace the needle anyways, since the whole point is to be a weapon master thing. You probably didn't want to go single needle, but there may have been fringe cases where you would have, but obviously we're not going to be doing that because we can't. And then Brandish. That's the first include into the deck. We are doing all 6 Brandishes. Boom. There we go.
Halfway done.
Now, let's see. So, things we're going to want here. We need things that buff weapon attacks. I'm trying to think how we can even search this to see what would buff weapon attacks. And we don't need things like Flock of the Featherwalkers because the needles have go again.
Yeah.
So we don't need to give our weapon attacks go again. So things that buff attacks. How does Brandish word it? Next weapon attack? Okay, so we're just going to put weapon attack and see what comes up. I don't anticipate many. Yes. Yep. Yep.
No, wait, is this...
This just gives Quicken.
Yeah, no. I mean,
okay.
Is it searching specifically?
It's just looking at generic right now.
Okay.
So then let's add to this just to make sure. I don't think there's ninja ones that care. Oh wait, okay, it's trying to do all of them then. Yeah, let's do ninja. Yeah, okay. Ninja has nothing. Not class would be the same as generic, right? No. I wonder what even falls under that category. Okay, so Brandish is the only one that directly references weapon attacks.
Okay.
Now, we probably do still put in attack reactions, even though they can't preemptively prevent the needle from getting broken. But because Rally the Rearguard and Brothers in Arms are cards that are out there.
There might be some cards that affect attacks, including weapon attacks. Like, they don't specify.
Yeah. Let's try weapon. Nope. Let's try. This is going to bring something up. This will bring Razor Reflex up.
That's right, yeah.
So we probably do run the full thing of Razor Reflexes, I think.
Okay.
Because in theory, so these have some other advantages. They can be used on attacks that cost 1 or less to pump them.
Mm-hmm.
Which means we can also pump our Brandish. So if we have the red Brandish, they block it, we can pump it to make it hit so that it buffs the needle.
Yep.
So that's another good thing for Razor Reflex. And then these all work on our needles, so since we're trying to kill them with needles, it's helpful to buff them anyways. And it works for Rally.
Acupuncture Master Benji.
Yeah. So we will also put in Razor Reflex. There are so few weapon matters things here, though. It's gonna be rough.
Well, like I said, there's probably some cards that affect not just weapons.
Like next attack. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I got you. Now I understand what we're talking about here. Okay, so
come to fight.
Yeah, but that affects attack actions.
Oh, it does say action.
Which again isn't necessarily bad. Like, we could still run things like this, although I don't know that we would, because we can always use it to pump the Brandish. But next attack action card for that. Minnowism. Attack action. Attack action. Attack action. Attack action. Yep, attack action. Most of the things pump attack action.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. So it's basically just Brandish is the only one we can use to buff it ahead of time. Aside from, obviously, we don't necessarily need Brandish because we can always do some sort of attack action card. Hits, pumps needle. So that's like 2 power attack action cards, or just like good to hit attack action cards. Just so we can start the chain off of that to buff our first needle attack. And then, I mean, you probably can do turns where if you can't buff the second needle, you still swing with it anyways. And if they break it, they break it. But that means they're saving their blocks to the end of the chain.
You're still looking up generic, though, right?
This is generic. That's true.
Okay.
So let's
possible.
look at Ninja.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they don't, but just in case.
Attack
action card.
Go again.
Oh, Twin Twisters.
Okay.
We got another one. All right.
Nice.
Smart. You got this. Okay, Bittering Thorns, too. Okay. And then Brand we don't get. And also wouldn't have been that relevant if we did. It just makes it Draconic, which does nothing for Benji.
I mean, we could put in the Tailwind, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so I think we focus first on the ones that do help.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Twin Twisters, when this hits, your next attack this combat chain gets +1. And the yellow and blue ones can't be blocked because of Benji. So that's great. And if we're not going off with weapons, we can always just use it to pump itself, because that's another option.
Do we do Bittering Thorns as well?
I think we probably could, even though it is blockable.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that's one of those things we force them to block there then. So, and we can use Razor Reflex to pump it.
True.
And that's why the attack reactions start to become more relevant, is that the more of these cards we put in, the better that becomes. So, yeah, I guess we put in... Do we put in all the Twin Twisters?
Well, I think it's the same argument for Bittering Thorns, where the 3, you could just buff it till it hits. Actually, it buffs itself, I think.
So we have the Bittering right there. It can. You have to choose one.
Yes.
So you choose whether to buff, and that's when you play it. So it is before they block, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so if you choose to buff it one, then you don't buff your next attack.
True.
But I think you're right. I think we do run all of them. I think we are that desperate for ways to buff the needle. Twin twisters. And we're already at 20 cards. We're halfway through the deck.
Yep.
Now, do we want more attack reaction cards? Is this the deck where Lunging Press finally sees play?
I almost put it in my Fey deck.
It actually...
It's just that cheeky, like, they block...
Would not be bad.
They block the 3, and you just sneak in 1 to do 1 damage to actually trigger.
So, it's not even going to come up on the... Oh, wait, no, it's not a ninja card.
It's a rare, too.
Yeah, but it should pop up on this common
True,
search.
that's true.
So, this card is often thought of as a rare, but it was printed technically as a common at one point.
In Katsu.
Yeah, and yep, Katsu and Ira, I think, both had it printed at common. But it's a 0 cost, target attack action gains +1.
Yep.
So it's a very small buff. But, I mean, being able to push Bittering Thorns to 4, and Twin Twisters to 4, and Brandish to 4. 4 is a pretty important
It is.
break point.
It's like they block for 3, or they have to block with 2 cards.
And the only problem with it is it doesn't buff our sword.
True.
But, our dagger, I guess. But, and ironically, I think blue cards are actually important. I think we want blues. Because needle costs 1.
Yeah.
So, like, to go Brandish, Needle, that's 3 resources we need right there. And to do the Brandish, Needle, that's 4.
Right.
So, having blue cards, I think we do want to be more blue heavy than anything else.
Right. You'd need to pitch...
Let alone the fact that that also works well with Benji.
You need to pitch at least 2 cards to do that. Or have 1/3 and some equipment that... Yes.
Which... I think there will be some sort of... I imagine we are using some sort of equipment that gives us resources.
Yep.
Actually, we probably can do Vest of the First Fist. I was thinking maybe we do, like, Blood Drop Brocade, but technically speaking, Vest gives us more resources.
True, yeah.
And we are more likely to use it. And we are pretty guaranteed to get it.
Right, because that's based on if it hits.
Right? Yes, yeah. And we can make it hit. We can make our first attack hit. Okay, I think for now, we put the Lunging Press in.
Okay.
And if we have to cut it, we have to cut it. But I love the idea that we may have finally found...
Oh,
kidding me? It's not going to let us put it in here?
Well, you can get around that.
All right. Put it to Blitz. Why did it even let me search it up, I wonder?
Because it
shows...
It's rather than that, it's why doesn't it let it put in?
When it comes up on the common search on this same site?
Yep.
Okay. So fun fact, if you ever need to... I mean, don't use and abuse this, because you could make very non-commoner decks, but in this case, Lunging Press does count in commoner.
Yes.
In fact, I believe Lunging Press is... Let me just confirm this. I believe it is the card referenced on this page when you read about commoner. I believe they use Lunging Press as the example. A card is considered common if it's ever been printed at common, e.g. Lunging Press.
Yep.
Which is so funny because it's actually the one that would see the least amount of play. Like, probably. Springboard Somersault's probably a better card.
Yeah.
Or, like, more playable.
I knew of that one more than Lunging Press.
Because I've used it in too many decks.
True.
It probably does, like, it is at the point now where it probably starts to phase out a little bit, but Springboard Somersault is another card that's like that, but it's a defense reaction that can block for 4, but pitches for 2, rather than the other defense reactions that block for 4 and pitch for 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you would see Springboard Somersault played. The only thing is you have to play it from Arsenal for the flat 4. Does punish you sometimes. But yeah, so Lunging Press, we have that in now. We found a deck that uses Lunging Press. I wonder what were the other... Was there another rare? I thought there was 3. I always think of it as 3.
I
can't remember. We looked this up before, and I forgot which one it...
I'm pretty sure we looked it up before, and you decided
so
that
it
you
was
were
only
crazy.
2? Yeah, there was only 2.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder why it sticks in my head as 3. Oh, can I not? I was going to try and search by this printing, but... Oh, that's what it was. That's why I'm thinking 3. It's the sword. The sword is the other rarity shifted one. It's the two-handed sword for ninjas.
Oh.
That one is... It actually counts as a common, despite being under the rare category. So,
okay.
One thing worth noting for ninjas, if you use Edge of Autumn, it does not actually take a rare slot, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think. I don't know. I think this one counts as a common printing. I'm not 100% sure now. Now I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the case. Doesn't matter for us. We're not using it.
Yep.
And in fact, it pretty much doesn't matter for anyone. I don't think there's any world in which you actually take Edge of Autumn when Kadachi is double the damage.
Yeah.
Just conditionally. But, yeah, so Needles, we have all of our ways to buff the Needle in the deck, which, again, actually not that bad. So if we drop the Razor Reflex here, we don't count those. That takes 6 out, and that means we have 16 cards that buff the Needles before blocks. That's not bad. That means, in theory, you should have one in every hand.
That's preferable.
Yeah. Which, okay. I'm back. Lunging press has to drop from the number 2, so it's still lower than that. It's 14, but 14 is still, in average, 1 per hand. As we started building this deck, I lost confidence, and I've gained confidence back.
Okay.
So here's the optimal way to play this deck before we've even finished it. You're looking to play any sort of 1 to 2 power attack, and then go Needle for 3. And then you play your damage amp, and then you go Needle for 3.
Yep.
That's the ideal, that's your normal turn. We talked about the dream turn, which is Brandish, Needle, Brandish, Needle. This is this is your standard turn. What you're looking to do every turn is go 1 attack, Needle, 1 attack, Needle.
1 attack that hits.
Yeah, well,
so you have
but that's the thing. So it's got to be 2 or less power.
Or 4 and...
Yes. And they don't block, double block.
Boosted it afterwards or something.
So, yeah, that means how we need to fill out the rest of this deck now is that we're looking for... I mean, we can include some finishers here because we did talk about that possibility. But what we really need to fill out the rest of this deck with is cards to start the chain off with. So we're mostly looking at... Or we're deciding if we want to do 4 power attacks or attacks that are guaranteed unblockable. I think we want, in the theory, in the nature of this deck...
We probably want more unblockable
the
attacks.
Guaranteed unblockable. Yeah. I think is how we want to go about this. So, I think that means what we are looking at is probably yellows. This is where we start going yellow heavy. Yeah. And I was thinking we would go blue heavy, but I think
unless it's a red attack that has 2, but I don't know that there are any.
Yeah, and they probably aren't very good if they do. Maybe they're not that bad though.
Right. I guess if it has 2 attack, then it would probably have something to compensate. I don't know.
Okay,
we'll find out.
I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, why aren't we just not building just Ira Weapon Master? Because then she gets the 2 power attack that is a specialization card. But then I'm like, wait, the whole unblockable part of that is with Benji. That's why we are building Weapon Master Benji. Because the Twin Twisters and the Brandishes and all that, they suddenly go way up in value when you are a Benji player. Yeah. And you can make them guaranteed to hit. And then we get the sweet Needle turns. So
also you take this to your local place where you play cards, and nobody has any idea what's going to happen because who plays Benji?
This is very, very, very true. Oh, I forgot we have these boots now too. Oh, that's actually kind of cool. Because this is already... I mean, the problem is we're probably going to be picking attacks that already have Go again.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is still going to be here for the Arcane Barrier, yeah.
Yeah. At the very least, you probably wouldn't need... it would actually be better than Snapdragon Scalers, because that just gives Go again, and we don't necessarily need it.
So, it depends.
Because you'd have this for...
It depends on how many finishers we put in. that's where the question comes up. Because
Well,
many of the finishers, like, say, for example, push the point. That costs 1. Snapdragons can work on a red push the point. Tide Flippers can't. Because it's a 4 base plus 2.
Well, but I mean, if it's a finisher, you don't need go.
Yeah, in theory. But, like, there's going to be the occasional turn where you go, like, needle, push the point. You know what I mean? So there's still an argument for doing Snapdragons. Yeah. But, again, it's going to depend on, like, how much we're hurting for you know, equipment slots.
I see.
Since we have double weapons, that is taking 2 slots. Now, the reason I'm looking at equipment right now is that before we get into the rest of building this deck, I mean, we could do deep blue as well.
Right, where you put a red card away at a...
Yeah, and you gain 3.
Yeah. But it's like a pseudo pitch for 3.
I think because we do care about the chain a lot, I think we do want something like this, where it just happens as a reaction.
Right.
And now the other reason I'm looking at this is that this gives you 2. So I was talking about how we probably want to care about yellow cards more. Mm-hmm. So with our dream turn of Brandish, Needle, you can pitch a yellow card and crack the vest, and you have the 4 resources to do that whole chain.
Okay.
So that's another thing to keep in mind. So I think we'll toss that in, and I think we are looking for primarily yellows. This is a finisher.
Well, should we look based on card cost first? Like go 0, then 1
Yeah,
or 2?
Because zeros would be the best, because you can go, like, the standard turn then only takes 3 resources. Yep. So 0 cost, needle, 1 cost that pumps it, needle. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely 0 cost would be the preferable. Whoop. I thought you typed for that one, but you don't. Okay, and we're primarily looking at the yellows, so like
we could do
head jab. Yep, that's an easy one.
Could we do the blue head jab? Would we want that?
We could. The question is whether we want that.
Because we're oversaturating our blue.
Well, it's one of those things that I don't know how important blue pitch is necessarily going to be. I don't know if it's going to be completely critical for us.
Okay.
If we're going to be able to do, like, yellow plus vest gives us all the resources we need. Although that is only 1 turn because we cracked the vest. So we may want to look into a little more blue cards. But I think yellow is probably our first focus.
Okay.
Only because those are going to be the higher power and the higher damage. Okay. So, like, this will be unblockable, but it's only going to deal 1 damage. Right. Whereas this is going to do 2. So, like, it's probably better to throw in stuff like this where...
A 0 cost 2 attack would go again.
Yeah. And I don't know that we will put that in, but it's possible.
So, rising knee thrust...
Yeah, we need leg tap, which is a 1 cost. So and then this also kind of goes against Benji, because now it's blockable because it got buffed.
Right, and leg tap has to be the last attack in the turn, so you'd have to do leg tap and then go into the rising knee thrust combo. Yep. So
not necessarily against it, but it's also not a priority.
Now, Soul Bead Strike
is actually insanely good, I realize, because we can take the blue, and it's going to have go again because it will be unblockable.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Soul Bead Strike is our Knight in Shining Armor, actually, because that lets us boost our blue and still have the important 2 damage.
No, we don't care about Wax On, because that's a defense reaction, right?
Yes, that is a defense reaction. Now... I think we do take Ride the Tailwind.
Okay.
Even though its second part is not super relevant, but I think it is. And there is after what we've just put in, there is a non-zero time in which that will be relevant.
It's true.
If we go Ride the Tailwind, Soul Beat Strike.
Right. Or
this will give it go again.
Or there's also there's another card, the one that stacks. Based on how many hits have been prior to it.
Oh yes, if we put that one in.
I think that's
Salt the Wound. Yes, that's if we want to put Salt the Wound in the deck.
Yeah.
Problem with Salt the Wound, right off the bat here, is that A, it won't be unblockable, because it will buff itself. So it's not unblockable because the unblockable is based off the final power
Oh,
rather
it's
than
not
base.
based off of the base? Okay.
Yeah. I think we do still probably put it in. I think this is one of the finishers worth running.
That's what my thought was.
But yes, so Ride the Tailwind will work to do that. And then
Correct.
if we're not swinging with the needles for whatever reason, you can do
Ride
the Tailwind plus Soul Beat Strike, because Ride the Tailwind will guaranteed hit, which means Soul Beat Strike will get boosted to 3 and not be unblockable anymore. But the Ride the Tailwind will give a go again. I don't know how often, if ever, that will happen. I guess that happens if your opponent has somehow broken your needles.
Right.
And you are no longer needling.
And that could also apply for the Salt the Wounds. Like
yes.
if there's ever an
yes.
instance.
Yeah, we'll give Salt the Wound go again, so you
Yeah.
could Salt the Wound something else.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. True. And yeah, that's a good finisher, so I think we do put that in.
Whelming Gust Wave is.
That is a question. It doesn't have go again unless we play the other thing. And Surging Strike costs 2.
Okay.
Yeah, Surging Strike is rough.
So we don't really want combo cards.
Yeah, I mean, like the one nice thing if we did the Whelming Gust Wave Surging Strike combo is that if we do blue Whelming Gust Wave, this draws a card.
Mm-hmm.
So we could always do Surging Strike to this. And then, like, they can't block it because it's only a 2 power because of the boost. And
it draws you a card.
yeah. But I don't know that that's necessarily worth a 2-cost attack.
No.
Whereas I think we are willing to consider 1-cost attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is all of the yellow 0-cost 2-power attacks.
Ooh, what about
plus the one blue.
Do we care about, like, say, Fate Foreseen or any of the generics?
Defense reactions? I don't know.
No, those are attacks.
What? Fate Foreseen?
Isn't it?
No, Fate Foreseen's the defense reaction. Oh, you're talking like come to fight, that sort of thing.
I was actually thinking of Fever and...
like the generic
The one-
0
yeah,
cost.
yeah.
I see. Now I'm with you here.
Yeah.
And also, too, if we want any pump spells like Nimblism, but I don't think we do, because pumping at the attack reaction step, very good for our deck.
Mm-hmm.
Pumping before the defense step, very much not good with our deck. So I guess we probably don't run anything like Nimblism or Minnowism, that kind of stuff. Overload or Dominate that does nothing. The problem is most of these don't automatically have go again. We have to get them into our arsenal for that. But there may be... So Scar for Scar. But we have to have... Oh, well, I was about to say, we have to have less health than them.
We do.
We do.
Initially.
Okay, so blue Scar for Scar then, maybe? So we have like another Soul Bead Strike?
Sure.
That seems pretty good. We could do Ravenous Rabble. It's going... Oh, wait, no. Ravenous Rabble's terrible on our deck.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, okay. It's actually not super terrible on our deck.
No, because it's based off pitch value, isn't it?
So the thing with Ravenous Rabble, ironically, is that Ravenous Rabble's bad for things that care about base power because its base power is 5.
That's true.
But Benji doesn't care about base power. He does care about final power, and so that will be after the pitch.
So, like...
But we do have a lot of blues
red
and yellows.
And you...
Yes, we could play the red, which would be at like 2 power if we flip a blue, or 3 power if we flip a yellow.
So
which
ironically...
could be a problem.
You'd
You want to
wanna-
flip the blue,
yeah.
Or you run the yellow one, and if you flip a blue, it only swings for 1.
And then if you flip the yellow, it swings for 2, so...
Yeah. And if you flip a red, that sucks.
And what about the blue? The blue could swing for 0.
Yes, the blue could swing for 0. And in fact, would be increasing our odds of doing that.
Yep.
I think there's some argument for the yellow.
Okay.
I think we could, in theory, put the yellow in because it is a 0 cost that automatically has go again. And it will never hit for 0, but it will occasionally be blockable.
What does Scour the Battlescape do again?
That's the one that you can cycle a card.
Oh, okay.
But then it has to hit to gain go again.
Yeah.
Which
And it has to be
has
played
some
from the
downsides.
arsenal?
Yeah. Or, yeah, it's not hit. It has to be played from the arsenal to gain go again. Sword attack. I don't think we really need Whispers. I think we can do better than Whispers. I don't think we really want Wounding Blow because it doesn't have go again.
Right, yep.
Although we could use Boots to give it go again. I don't.
No, we don't control.
No.
Auras.
Oh, it doesn't have go again. It doesn't have go again. So yeah. I mean, I could see an argument for wounding blow, maybe, and then just be like, yeah, that's the one thing you save your boots for.
Yep. Or rising tailwind into that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll put the blue in. That's another blue that swings for 2.
It is kind of a whiff, though.
It can be. If we pull 2 of them, that sucks. But then maybe this is what we pitched then. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So yeah, we have that. We did not put... So do we put the Ravenous Rabble in? The yellow? And then that gives us... Okay, let's take the risk. So there's only 6 hits where it becomes blockable. That may be going up a little bit here momentarily, but that puts us at 14 blue, 16 yellow.
No, we're only looking at zero costs so far. Still.
Yes,
so
yes.
We can.
We'll look at the 1 cost and see if we have to replace anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think any of the conditional go-against we really, really want to go into. I think there's some argument now for putting in like blue ride the tailwind to give things like wounding blow go again, but I don't think it's super relevant. And I think we would do ride the tailwind before head jab because it's the same thing, but with extras. Yeah. It's a strictly better head jab, but in this case we kind of wanted both. All right, so look at the 1 costs. So the leg tap we mentioned, which would be the blue one, which at least it's the blue one, so that's not too bad. That's unfortunate. Yeah, even the blue one's not low enough to get go again.
Unfortunate.
Why is this here? Why is this here?
Because it's.
I would love to put this in the deck. Don't get me wrong.
It's because we're.
But we are not Ira.
I don't know.
It's the weirdest thing. Okay, can't do that.
Are we looking
belittle
based
band?
on Ninja? But even so, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's weird. That's weird. Okay, we can't put belittle in, so not even worth looking at. It's banned.
Get out of here.
They really do need to update their common rules here. Nope. And we already talked about we don't need flock.
Yep.
Nimble strike. Yeah, but we don't have nimbleism in the deck, and we don't really want nimbleism in the deck. I think we're really only looking for attacks here, right? Like, I don't think we want not-attack actions per se.
What's thrust? Oh, that's
the sword one.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean the non-attack actions do something for a deck, but if we are going to put this yellow Ravenous Rabble in, like if we're going to put a non-attack action, we're going to put it in red. And the more we put in, the worse this Ravenous gets.
Yeah.
So, ironically, the damage output goes up, but the working with our deck goes down. Okay. And so, we do have decent number of blues. So, like, this Ravenous Rabble is occasionally going to be a swing for 1, which kind of sucks, but...
But, I mean, 1's better than none.
That's true. All right. Finishers.
And it's unblockable.
So we can put in Push the Point. I think this is the easiest one to put in as a good finisher. And we put in the red because they can block it regardless. If we put the blue in, for example, it's still going to be a 4 when we swing with it, in theory. But the thing is, we should be able to guarantee this as a 6 damage because we should be able to play something that they can't block and then push the point. So, just a generically good finisher there. And then the only other one that we could think of for like a finisher off the top of my head, I should press the search button, is, I think it's on this, wait, what? Actually, no, reset. Search. Okay, there we go. Flying Kick is another one. That if you play it chain link 3 or higher, it gains +2. And so that's 7.
Which is decent.
But it costs 2.
Yeah.
Which is rough. The one nice thing with this, though, is if you don't have a way to swing with your second needle, you could always go, like, 1 attack, first needle, and then just Flying Kick, end your turn. And still do a ton of damage, because in theory you do 2 on the first attack, 3 on the needle, so that's 5, plus the 7 is 11. So that's the same amount as our dream turn.
And I mean, worst comes to worst, you could still play it as a 5 attack, and it would be a decent attack.
Yes. So the question is, do we want this as one more finisher as a red flying kick, or would we rather do blue-red the Tailwind? I think that's the big question.
I don't mind having another finisher.
Okay. So we'll do flying kick, and our finishers are 2 flying kicks, 2 push the points, and 2 solve the wound.
Yeah.
And so that puts us at, let's see, so that's 10 red cards. So that is a little sketchy with a Ravenous Rabble. Okay. But, I mean, whatever. If it's a 3 power, go again attack, like, woo, it swings for a lot at least. And then we have 16 yellow, 14 blue. So our pitch is definitely interesting. Since we have so many 0 costs now, I'm a little less concerned about being able to do like the needle turns.
Yep.
Because, I mean, they'll still need 3, but in theory we should have a blue card in every hand.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do attack, needle, or attack, pitch blue, needle, attack, needle. Because we should have a 0 cost in every hand. Yep. We should have a blue card in every hand. And we should have something that pumps a needle in every hand. Statistically speaking. Will not happen in practice, but statistically speaking, we should. So, that is our main board. And now we just have to talk about equipment.
Okay.
This is actually really neat. I'm actually way more... I'm back into being super excited about Weapon Master Benji. Like, we got super excited about this whenever we talked about it originally, and then I forgot the important things by now that had made us super excited about it. I totally forgot about Twin Twisters. Everfest gave us so many beautiful things. Everfest really was the hero that we all needed. We got Arcane Lantern out of it. We got like Wild Ride for like the brutes and all that stuff. We got Twin Twisters. It's really funny because I actually made fun of the ninja cards in Everfest, and we're using a bunch of them in this deck.
It's because we didn't understand them at the time.
We weren't men of culture that truly appreciated.
Also, they had Wax On, which like threw us for a loop. Like, why is this here?
True.
It's to distract us from the Twin Twisters.
Well, again, it's for when your entire like play group at your LGS is playing Ninja, then you run the Wax On.
Also, can you look at the art for the ride to the Tailwind?
Ride the Tailwind?
Yeah.
It's on the first page. Easy.
Is that Benji?
I don't know. I think it is.
Benji older?
Is that Benji and Katsu? I think it might be. I think that is Benji, though. Just a different artist drawing him. But I think like the hairstyle is similar. Just a very different looking face, kind of. But yeah, I think that is meant to be Benji.
Yeah, I thought that would be him older.
I think that might be the same age Benji. I'm still not confident that Benji lives to be an adult.
Well, I didn't say an adult. He's like 17 and then he dies at 18.
yeah, that's before he would have gotten the 18th hit point.
Wow. That's heavy. Jeez. I didn't think of it that way.
Look. Until LSS says otherwise, this is my canon. The heroes that we only see young versions of never live to be adults. Pour one out for Shiana. Actually, I'm standing by what I said with Shiana last time. Adult Shiana is just some other hero that she's pretending to be.
Or she never ages.
That may also be true.
Who knows?
But yes, so Cavdine dies. He lives in the pits. That seems reasonable. Benji dies. KO dies. KO probably dies much like our game of KO that has come out by this point.
Yeah.
Where KO does something super sweet, and then all of his other attacks get halved, and he dies. Who else? Oh, Kasai dies, apparently. That's sad. Datadol dies. Very expected.
Yeah. Yeah, but she gets remade into Mark III eventually.
Ira dies. Very surprising. Very deserved.
What's the Taylor?
Taylor, yep.
Okay.
Yorick probably gets killed because people get tired of his nonsense. The Bard.
Right. Jesus.
The Everfest heroes, except for Icelander. Icelander lives now because she has an adult version printed. So Genis dies. What you need?
What about
the Guardian?
That Guardian that has 21 health. Is that a young hero?
Doesn't have an adult version.
Okay.
Dies. Just straight following in the role. Just dies at 22, 21, whatever it was. That's the only hero that has more than 20 health, right? I think it is.
Yeah. She dies on her 21st birthday,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Still doesn't
the
get to
card
be
gets
like
made,
a...
and
Yeah.
then she dies the day after, or the night of, or something. She gets
Yeah.
too drunk and alcohol poisoning. It's very sad. We shouldn't be laughing, but
Okay. So,
anyways.
so here's the question. Here's the question I have. I present to you. Is there a world in which we run
Kadachis.
a number of kadachis in the sideboard? So, like, the thought behind this one is, like, into a matchup where they're likely to be able to block one of the weapon attacks for more than 3. So what this could be is a hero that has cards that defend for more than 3, or can potentially defend for more than 3. Like, is there a deck in Commoner that can pump the defense value?
There might be some Guardian cards.
Yes. So that's what I'm wondering is, like, is there a non-zero chance where we take Needle 2 out and replace it with a Kadachi, and we think that Needle 1 will hit and not break?
Well, you'd have to know that before going. It's kind of a meta thing.
Yeah, well, but the equipment is sideboard, so once you see the hero presented, you can make the swap.
Okay, that's true.
And so then the idea here is that if that's the case, you start your chain off with the weapon boosting thing, and that way your first Needle swings for 4, which should get around most things. And then your second swing is Kadachi. And so you're still doing more damage than just Kadachi, because you have 1 Needle.
Right. And we do have some 0 cards that could be pitched to give Kadachi a go again.
Yes, that's true. We have 16 of them or whatever. And a number of them are blue, which increases their odds of being pitched. Do we do that? How much will that hurt us later on?
Well, we could put them in for now, and we can take them out later if we need to.
So do we put 1 or do we put 2?
Why not 2? Because, I mean, if...
Yeah, do you think we would board out both? See, I feel like there's a chance we board 1. And, like... Okay, so here's what I'll say.
If you're going up against someone who has the way to break the needles...
Yes. But if you can buff the first attack to 4, does that get around that?
Yes, I don't know.
Possibly. I don't know. We'd have to see what cards do that.
You'd want at least 1 in that case. That way, in case they do, only 1 of your needles would break, and then you'd still have your Kadachi to swing around.
Okay, so we're fairly confident that this would be Guardian if it exists in Commoner.
I think.
So let's check the Guardian commons. Most of them block for 3 because Guardian's all about blocking things. Okay, this only prevents damage, so that won't do it. Although this does have some downsides. This can be used to block our first attack.
Yes.
So, actually, how does...
And it runs at instant speed.
Benji is they can't defend with cards... Oh, wait. Can't be defended by cards from hand. This includes defense reactions. So they can't use defense reactions to block either. So yeah, Blessing does get around it.
But that's an instant...
I missed that wording.
That's an instant card, so that would affect it.
Wait, so does that mean defense reactions do count? If it has to specifically mean this includes defense reactions? Do defense reactions count as defending cards then? Oh, I don't know. I mean, you would still be able to do an attack reaction in response to a defense reaction.
Yes.
So, like, that still increases the argument for things like Razor Reflex. This makes me really wonder. What? Defend by card with... Does defense reactions count towards us then? Nah. It doesn't matter. We still do this regardless of whether the... So defense reactions might break it, but that's what the Razor Reflexes are for.
It's something you can argue with your judge for.
And we'll probably look up immediately after this video. Again. You'd think they would put that on the release notes for the Zephyr Needle, though.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and it's defended with cards from hand, so equipment doesn't matter. That's 3. Create seismic. Oh, I didn't realize that was in common. Seismic surge. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
Prevent the next 4 damage. So that's still that blocks the first attack, but it doesn't. Increase block for for the needle, for breaking the needle. Okay, so nothing here.
Stonewall Confidence.
Oh, Stonewall Confidence will do that. With cost 3 or greater, we'll gain it. So Stonewall Confidence is a way for the Guardian to do it. And let me check here too.
It is an action though.
Well, it's an aura they put in, so you'll see it ahead of time.
Yep, okay.
You will know ahead of time that it's coming.
It's an aura.
That blocks 2. That blocks 3. That is a hat. Okay. Nothing here increases block.
Wait, wasn't there something down here?
Oh wait, attack action cards you control gain +1 and plus. Okay, yeah. So this could be used to.
Okay, but again, you'll be able to see it. But I guess it would be a deterrent in that case.
Yeah, well, yes, you'd see the Amulet of Earth out, and then they would crack it. Like, you would play your attack, and in response to your attack, they would crack that, in theory.
Yep.
But, yeah, so Amulet of Earth, Stonewall Confidence, those are the big things. Is that enough reason to run 2 kadachis instead of 1 needle and a kadachi? I feel like no. Because you can see it.
Right.
And, like, this is a one-use thing. You could, in theory, like, this will only increase the defense by 1. So you can play around that. If you do what I said, where you boost the needle to 4, it should still be able to survive whatever blocks with the Amulet of Earth. Now, Stonewall Confidence, this will just boost them or whatever, like +3, and we're doomed. But this kills itself on the next turn. So you just don't attack that turn with a needle. You just use the kadachi that turn or whatever instead. Okay. So you can still play around Stonewall Confidence knowing that it will only last 1 turn.
So you just wait it out.
Yes. So, yeah, I think 1 kadachi is the answer here. And just in a matchup where you could see that happening, you bring in the kadachi.
Okay.
Or if it's one where you just, like, think that they're going to play a bunch of, like, block 3s and you're worried you're not going to be able to buff I don't know.
It's going to be weird going into, like, a Briar matchup, and then all of a sudden you realize they're Earth Briar for some reason.
Yeah, and then they Amulet of Earth you, and you're like, oh, no.
I could have prevented this.
Okay, so now we talk about the armor. I think this has gone up in value a lot, right? 2 or less base power gains going in.
Right.
Yes, this has gone up a lot.
There are attacks.
Because we have Wounding Blow, we have Soul Beat Strike if they can block it, we have Scar for Scar if we've been beating the crap out of them and they're lower health than us now.
Right. And we have Salt the Wound
Salt the Wound, that we mentioned. Yeah. So, yeah, we were talking about bringing in an extra Ride the Tailwind, so... Yeah, I think we are just Tide Flippers. We just don't even care about Snapdragon Scalers.
Okay.
I think there's enough benefits to Tide Flippers that it will outweigh being able to use Snapdragon on Push the Point. And you can't Snapdragon the Flying Kick.
Right.
So, and then all the other 1 costs already have Go Again. Yeah. Yes. Yes, they do. Perfect. Okay. So, Tide Flippers in, Vest in.
Now, are we considering those, like, always there? We're not going to switch them out?
Probably. I mean, like, what would we switch? Yeah, Tide Flippers in automatically. Vest, I mean, it depends on when we, like, we'll have to look at the other equipment. Like, so right now we just want to figure out what our best case scenario is. And so Tide Flippers is our best case. Like, this is our Ultra Greed mode equipment. We do Tide Flippers, we do Vest. And then we just kind of see what are the weakest ones after that to replace. I wish there was an easier way to do it than to narrow it down to, like, gloves, etc.
There's not a equipment? Oh, you mean...
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they organized it based on...
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it would. So, Bracers of Belief. Next attack action card you play this turn gets +X, where X is 3 minus the pitch value of the card revealed this way. This will be +0 many times.
Yep. So.
Yeah,
we
probably
don't
not.
want that.
Probably not. Breaking skills. This is the ninja one. Target attack action card with combo gains +1.
Does not affect us.
I don't think there is a single card in our deck that says combo.
From that. No.
We kind of did, yeah. And this is the one place where it kind of punishes us. Ride Tailwind's not combo. Salt the Wound's not combo.
We stayed away from the combos because it takes away from the Weapon Master Benji.
Yep, that's true. So then all of these gloves suck. It's basically what it comes down to. Because they're like, since we're so 2 damage heavy, even Cracker Jacks puts us over the line.
Why wouldn't we just do Stubby Hammers?
To boost up on it, because that'll make all of our stuff blockable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's the kind of rough shape we're in.
What about? Wait. Then would we want Goliath Gauntlet for our finishers?
Oh. Wait, see, the problem is this only works on Flying Kick.
Yeah, that's true, because the other one's 1 cost, isn't it?
Is that enough, though? Is that enough to make it our best greed one? Because you just crack this at the start, then you chain off, and then you Flying Kick.
For like 9.
Yeah. I think you might be right. That's so wild. Yep. We have 2 cost cards in our deck, but I think that's the case. And I'm trying to think. Okay. So here's the thing. Here's ultimately the way I look at it. So ironically, Stubby Hammers is probably bad for us because it'll make all of our stuff blockable. In theory, we don't really have like anything that's like 1 power attack aside from Twin Twisters and Brandish.
I mean,
so it would buff all of the rest of these up to the blockable rank.
We could, break it in the middle of the turn.
But then that'll end the chain, which has other downsides potentially. That is true. There's a few things that care about the chain, like
Salt the Wounds does not count.
It's chain. Each hit this chain.
Oh, it is chain. Okay.
Push the point is like the previous chain hits to hit, but that could be a second chain and still work.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So I don't think there's any other gloves we could really use here that are good.
Quelling sleeves.
Oh, we could do quellings. Yeah, but I've seen a lot of people start using these quellings, but I'm not a huge fan of them. I don't know why. I've seen people using a lot of Helios Mitra too, and that just seems so obscenely expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Here are my thoughts. So we talked about the Goliath Gauntlet and how it'd be good for making a crazy Flying Kick. Or we take Cracker Jacks. And so here's the reason. Red Brandish, red Twin Twisters, and if this ends up being the higher damage, but we wouldn't know that ahead of time.
So you're saying Cracker Jacks just because it affects more of our bigger hitting attacks?
So you can do Cracker Jacks and then start off with a Brandish, and it's now 4 power. So they have to, it moves it to the key point. From one that was already going to be blockable to the now key point of they have to double block it.
Yeah.
So, and that will affect, in an important way, affect Brandish and Twin Twisters. And we'll give them +1. Or we do
Ultra
Goliath Gauntlets, and it sits there for like the whole game, but eventually if we find Flying Kick, we crack this and Flying Kick. So...
do we go Ultra Greed, or do we give Cracker Jacks a purpose?
This pains me so deeply because this is...
Because you dislike Cracker Jacks so much?
No, because it's the same thing with the Cano deck, the Battle Mage Cano deck I played. That was the first deck I'd ever encountered in which there was an argument for running Cracker Jacks. And I have a cold foil Cracker Jacks. I have one. It's sitting there collecting dust. And I would love an excuse to use that card. But in Battle Mage Cano, 8 cards you could Goliath Gauntlet out of 10 attacks. And the 2 that you couldn't didn't have an on-hit effect. So it didn't really matter, and Goliath Gauntlets was just better. This is the one where there's really an argument for the Cracker Jacks here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it could actually be good here, because, like, Stubby Hammers has a negative of making all of your stuff, blockable.
Yep.
And that could really mess up the rest of your turn. So even though it results in higher damage, it does have a potentially huge negative.
Right. You might do more damage per card, but you might only be able to play half your hand or whatever.
Yes. The problem with Cracker Jacks is, like, Goliath Gauntlets, you can crack this at the start of your turn and then chain off and then end with Flying Kick, and Flying Kick will get buffed. Cracker Jacks will buff the next attack. So your first attack of the turn is not going to be unblockable.
Right.
So that means you have to start with one of the red ones. You can't, like, crack this, do a blue, and then... I mean, you could break the chain in theory. So you do, like, an unblockable blue, swing with a needle, and then crack this red Brandish needle again. Mm-hmm. And that brings me to the other problem here, is that, like, I described our standard turn, and our standard turn was playing the Brandish Twin Twister before the second needle attack. And so if we want to use Cracker Jacks on that, that's further into the chain. So then what I'm basically saying is I'm thinking that this may still be one where Goliath Gauntlets beats the Cracker Jacks. Even though this is even closer to the Cracker Jacks game than the Kano deck is. This is the closest to a Cracker Jacks deck we have ever had.
Yep.
And I still think that it might be better to go Goliath Gauntlet for that 1 in a million Flying Kick turn.
I love the Ultra Greed.
I think it's actually right, though. It has higher damage output from the Cracker Jacks, and it affects 2 cards as opposed to 4 cards. Mm-hmm. And the Cracker Jacks will negatively affect other cards, so, like, we really are just holding it for those 4.
Yeah.
Put it in. Oh, this could have been the cold foil Cracker Jacks. Could have been the moment. And now, as we're talking about the cards that are most likely to get dropped for sideboarding, Goliath Gauntlet is first on the list.
Yep, which is, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's just funny. Okay.
I don't think I was going to even start to talk about. I'm like, oh, maybe the hat's the first one to go, because that's like the first thing you sideboard for every other deck. It's like the hat is the least relevant. But as I think about this, we're talking about all these crazy, like, combo turns, and, like, we want to have attack that hits, needle, and then something that pumps the needle. That's a lot of, like, specific things we need each turn.
Right.
And Hope Merchants is going to help us get that more often. So I think we are a Hope Merchants deck, and I think we actually sideboard the gloves out before the Merchants Hood.
Yeah, I can see that.
But these are the first 2. So for Arcane, we are definitely doing the Null Rune gloves in the hood, and then that's like it. That's like what you need.
Do you want Ironhide?
That's the question. So we are at 9. So we have 2 slots left.
We could just do 2 gloves or a pair of gloves and
the Ironhides. Yeah.
Helm.
That seems reasonable.
Okay.
Are we fine with... Do we want Ironhide, or is Iron Rot better here? How often are we going to want to pitch for Ironhide? This is the question. Like, do we need to be going into all of our... Like, how much do we want to be able to go into all of our turns swinging with our weapon twice? Because it is kind of expensive. It costs 1 for each weapon attack.
Yeah.
And if we need to pump the weapon, that means at least 3 resources we need. And that's 2 cards that we're using as attacks. So that means we can only block with 1 card. Or pitch 1 card to pay for the stuff. Or we arsenaled something, and then we can do 2 cards.
So I guess it comes down to, are we being super aggro and just not blocking?
Yeah, that's the question. And more importantly, like, I mean, I don't think this necessarily has to be a deck where we're always going super aggro and we're just trying to race them, because there's definitely races that Benji loses, I think.
Definitely.
So my thought, though, is that, does that make Iron Rot better because you can just block for free, and it buys you more time before you have to go ultra defensive.
You could
rather than like pitching a card to...
You could normally block with your hand, but if you get a good hand, you could block with your equipment instead.
Yeah, and I mean, only blocks 2.
It does,
but
it could matter.
I don't know. What do you think on that? Is it better to do the block 4 Ironhide, but that you have to pitch 4, or the block 2 and you don't have to pitch anything?
Well, I mean, it's 1 each, right?
Yeah.
So you could just pitch a yellow card. You'd be down 1 card.
Yes,
and you'd still have 3
4
cards.
Yes. And then you still effectively blocked for more than if you blocked with that 1 card?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is also not one of the decks where we do Iron Rot.
No.
Iron Rot stays in the dump.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Ironhide Gauntlet, Ironhide Helm. There we go. And that is the deck.
Yeah.
Since we only put the... Or we could drop an Ironhide and go up a Kadachi, but then that makes Ironhide worse. I think, in that case, if we only have the 1 piece.
Yep.
Yeah. So there we go. That is our Weapon Master Benji. That is, I think, the most interesting deck we have built on one of these episodes.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, like, what's close to as interesting to this? Data Doll?
Nah.
Well, Data Doll, yeah.
Data
Doll's not that interesting, is it?
No,
Because it's like you're just putting all the items in and then just hoping for the best.
Yep. And it got gimped afterwards.
Yeah, and then it did have Ragamuffins. That was the one really neat deck building thing.
Yep.
Whereas like the one deck where like Ragamuffins actually is relevant, the
Mm-hmm.
difference. So Data Doll's kind of up there, and then KO. KO was also kind of interesting because we were prioritizing some cards that wouldn't normally be good.
I do like the KO deck.
That deck is surprisingly fun. That is, I had no interest in Brute, and then KO is the one Brute that made me actually like the class and be like, that's actually fun. I enjoy KO. KO is a good one. But like he had some of those ones like Demolition Crew that probably doesn't make the cut for any other Brute deck.
Right.
But because KO has the chance to double the Dominate attack. But I still think this one's probably the most interesting we've done. And it uses so many cards that I thought were garbage. Like Twin Twisters and like Ride the Tailwind. But Twin Twisters and Brandish are probably the biggest ones that like these cards to me were just like bad. Mm-hmm. And now we found like a home in which they're not awful. And Wounding Blow. The blue Wounding Blow of all things too.
Yep.
But yeah, there we go. Weapon Master Benji. So if you want to try out Benji, this may not be the most competitive way to play him. I honestly don't know. Maybe it is.
It might be.
I mean, like, this is... The question is whether it's more advantageous to build, like, a normal combo Benji, and you're just doing things like your combo starters, like Head Jab and all that. You do the yellows and blues, so they're guaranteed to hit, so that the next one is guaranteed to get its boost. But this definitely feels like a deck where we have leveraged the abilities of Benji the best. So maybe there's another way to build them where you're just like more of a standard ninja and you're not focused around weapon attacks and you still really benefit from his first half, but...
I still think this is an interesting route because, I mean, he has his needles and... You know, initially I thought they were kind of garbage because they break, but I mean, as long as you utilize them correctly, they actually work.
Yeah, and I think there's enough ways for us to pretty consistently boost their power in this. So that, like, in theory, you're... I mean, like, statistically speaking, on average every turn, they're presenting 6 points of damage with Go-Yen. Because we should have a way to do that every turn.
Mm-hmm.
For 2. So you're literally getting a 6 power attack in there, and it's just your weapons.
Yeah.
And then once you reach the late game, you know, and everyone's low on cards, you can always just keep that 1/2 cost to keep pitching to the needles, and I mean, your opponent probably can't break the needles because then they are also probably at almost no cards. So, so yeah. I think it's really neat. I don't know if it's the best version of Benji, but I think it's the best weapon-focused version of Benji.
Yes, definitely.
And it's definitely one of the most neat ninja decks you could ever play. It's probably even more interesting than if we got to do 100 Wings Ninja.
I guess, yeah.
I think this is even more unique. With the 3 weapons over there. But yeah, if you like the video or you think we could have done anything different with the deck, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think should have made the cut. Should we have put the Cracker Jacks in? Was this the place? Was Iron Rot the call? And yeah, if you like it, leave a like and subscribe for more commoner content.